Break out the carrot sticks and natural yogurt, no artificial hormones added. It's time for the Doctor's Nutrition Show. Dr. Lewis and Janet have a long history of helping people achieve their maximum potential. While Janet is a certified natural health consultant with a unique perspective of alternative and complementary nutrition, Dr. Lewis stays current on the latest research pertaining to nutritional supplements and optimum health. Paramount to their educational journey was their trip to China while studying Chinese medical doctors. Dr. Lewis and Janet know the importance of proper nutrition in the healing process and maintenance of the human body. Get ready to gain a healthy perspective on life. This is the Doctor's Nutrition Show.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Doctor's Nutrition Show. I'm Janet Lewis.
And I'm Dr. Lewis.
And we are here to bring you a very exciting show this week that we hope you will remember because it's called Where Has My Mind Gone? So many people now are having problems with memory loss from so many different avenues. They're all afraid they've got Alzheimer's starting, which we hope they don't. But Dr. Lewis is going to clear up today what may be happening, what you can do about it. Is there a way to start remembering again like you used to when you were young? So with that being said, Dr. Lewis, tell us how to keep our mind.
I forgot. It takes a lot of practice, depending on the person, of course. We've become a society that's gotten kind of where we start majoring on the minors, so to speak. If you understand that, then your mind's fine. We live in a more toxic world. You hear me talk about toxins, and I do that because most people just ignore them. There's stresses. And stress is an overused word, and that's because the more we talk about it and the more we focus on it, the more we actually create it. I'm a big believer in that you create your world. People say, no, God's in control. And I say, no, I don't think God's in control because he gives us choice. And, yeah, sure, he's in control of the big picture. But, folks, there's things that you can do and take responsibility to make your mind work better. And I think it's many different reasons, and one of the things is I read a study that said people in Utah, and that's an absolutely incredibly beautiful and peaceful state. Janet, I've been there several times. They have the highest prescription rates of antidepressant drugs in America.
Really?
Yeah, because generally speaking, they're Mormon and they don't do stimulants like caffeine or depressants like alcohol. So they actually have a much higher consumption of sugar. And sugar, or the metabolic acidosis and the prediabetes, and that leads to these little plaquings in the brain. So it's really funny, and some of these things we bring upon ourselves, and I would like to say, Janet doesn't know I'm going to say this, but I'd like to say I'm very proud of her because she does say, well, I'm not in control, but I have to show up and be peaceful and be a bright light to the world. And she has grown so much from, worrying about things too much to say, hey, I'm just going to show up and smile and spread my joy. And that works a lot better, and it's decreased her stress. And her mind, she has to do so many things here. I'm just amazed I couldn't do it. But we also supplement a lot to make sure our brain has the raw materials to work with. So when in America did we lose the thought that God can heal the body? All he needs is no interference and the raw materials to work with. The no interference means get out the self-induced stress and get out the toxins that we know are in our environment. Put in nutrients that you cannot get enough of out of your food, although it's very important to eat more organic and cleaner. So, Janet does a good job. She's actually a better influence on me, I think, than I am on her because I watch her. She eats naturally much healthier than I do.
Well, geez, I'm getting all kind of compliments here. I think I'm just going to let him take the show.
No, I'm just kind of buddying up to her, so maybe I can get a cookie at lunch, and then the sugar will blow my memory.
Right. Well, I can say there's so many things that do cause brain issues, and I am at peace only because I've been through the worry and all of that and thinking I'm in control of so many things that when you actually get to that day that you've been worried about, it doesn't ever turn out the way you think anyway. So I've learned that you might as well not try to procrastinate about what's happening and just live in the moment and live in the day.
I will always tell Janet and the kids, just show up and smile.
Mm-hmm. Having a low immune system like I do, I can't afford the stress anymore. And we did notice we were on vacation for a week, and as we were on vacation, as the days went by, our mind got better and better again because of the burden of not having to think about so many different things every day. So, many times it's that your body's just completely run down, and so your mind just kind of takes off.
And we put a lot into this up front before people get their help. If people knew what we put into their health, I'm thinking of one girl in particular, and she came in, had horrible depression and all kinds of other things. And I said, it's going to be a bumpy road. Well, you've got to stick with it. And she kind of bailed out real quickly. And it's like, it's a lady I went to school with, and I'd love to be her hero. But, folks, when you go through those periods of stress, you have to have the faith to stick with it, because the Bible says it rains on the righteous and the unrighteous also. So, we're going to talk about a few things and hopefully give you an idea of what to do. I talk about the toxins. They mimic estrogen activity, which has a huge effect on our moods and our mind, and that comes from the American Medical Association and Journal of Science. So this is not me speaking. These are, pretty high-class research places. PCB pesticides, and that's on everything you eat, folks. They affect the uptake of the neurotransmitters, which is dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, GABA, and that's from Journal of Toxicology. We have a lot of different things. We're going to talk about a couple, but there's one thing in particular. This one lady comes over, and she says her husband has an addictive personality, and he gambles too much. And I said, well, he needs to take this. And she said, but he'll never take it. I said, stir it in his coffee. So she stirred this particular supplement in his coffee, unbeknownst to him, and he quit gambling. So she, like all of us, she kind of didn't worry about it after that because the problem was gone. And then about a week after she ran out, he went over to the casinos and blew about $15,000. And she says, oh, I remember what I was doing. So it could be just the toxins in this man's body that creates his addictive behavior. In this case, it's to gambling, but we've seen other different types of addictions also.
So if you want to save money on gambling, just get the Dopa Boost and take that instead of wasting all the money gambling. It's way cheaper than
it worked on him.
Watching that go down the drain.
Lack of B vitamins, that can cause you to lose your memory. We're going to get hopefully a little more specific. And it can also cause, a psychosis, and that's from British Journal of Psychiatry. We don't have enough B vitamins in our system because you don't know, even though you eat those green leafy vegetables, they may have been shipped from California to Texas, or the oranges from Florida get shipped to California. The California oranges get shipped to Florida. I mean, who knows where this stuff comes from? And there's a major amount of nutrient depletion in the shipping. As soon as it's picked, the nutrients begin to be depleted, and they're not that much in there anyway. So most of us have B vitamin deficiencies, and that's pretty common that we need those. And even PMS becomes much, much worse when you have a lack of vitamin B.
And hair falls out, too, when you have a lack of vitamin B.
Yeah, you bald men don't think that vitamin B is going to bring your hair back. But, the stress, we see a lot of women with very, very thin hair. And once we put them on the right amount for the right time, they seem to grow it back much more efficiently. So, you can tell there's many, many different ways. One thing that actually is very detrimental to your mind is wheat. And people say, but I can't give up wheat. I can't give up my bread. I love my biscuits and gravy. I've had people that had the courage to stick with a no-wheat diet for 3 months, and it was incredible. They'd start losing weight, getting energy, their depression would go away. And that's not the only cause of that, and then loss of memory, but it certainly can be because of not just the gluten in the wheat is 4 to 40 times more than what it used to be, which is a big issue. But they also spray glyphosate or Roundup on it, And, there's now being lawsuits against Monsanto about glyphosate causing cancer. It's like, well, we've known that for years, but so do all these other chemicals. Why are you just now picking on Monsanto? So stay away from wheat and oats. That's the two worst grains that you can consume. I'm not a big grain fan anyway.
So that would be oatmeal that people are doing every morning for their fiber, correct?
Yeah, people say, but I like it. And I'm thinking to myself, it don't like you, but you do what you want. And folks, if you want something different, you kind of have to do something different. And, sometimes I don't like to do the right thing, but it's worth it. Because one of these days you're going to look back and say, I'm glad I did, or I wish I had have. And only you can make that choice about what you want to do. And it's about finding the right path for you and then being consistent.
Right. Another big one for mind issues is thyroid problems. And I believe that was in part of your Thyroid Sniper book that you wrote about that as well. But having the thyroid that's not at optimal levels. Can you talk a little bit about how that works and how the mind is not working correctly because of thyroid?
Yeah. I talked to a lady yesterday, and she says, oh, my God, you've worked on my thyroid and given it something to work with, and I've gone from feeling like I'm one step away from being a corpse to now I'm alive again. And that's a lady down in Central Texas, so I'm very, very happy to have talked to her. So, yeah, thyroid makes a big difference. All the different glands do, the hormones. And, there's a good article about thyroid in Journal of Thyroid 1995. I know that's an old article, but it's still very, very valid about how that can help with your mind and with stress, anxiety, and depression. So, they all go hand in hand.
So, again, that thyroid being sluggish could actually make your mind not function like it should. So, it doesn't matter what kind of supplements you take. If your thyroid's not optimal, you're never going to feel great.
Yeah, but the thyroid has to do with carbohydrate, fat, and protein metabolism. So if you've got that slow gut or leaky gut, and then that's going to fill you full of more toxins, which grows yeast, fungus, and viruses. And that's why there have been cases where antifungal treatments actually help your mind in depression. So, folks, if you describe the way you feel mentally as brain fog, think about the thyroid, think about the adrenals, think about the over-colonization of your GI tract. The small intestine kind of gets overlooked a lot. It's small intestine bacterial overgrowth. They call it SIBO. That's really a big thing. And Janet has introduced me to some enzymes that we take. And it's like, oh, my God, you can tell the inflammation has gone down dramatically, even if we consume wheat, which we don't do a lot of, but it helps. So those enzymes clean up. And then once your bowels move better and detoxify, then that helps clean up your thyroid also. So it's kind of a converse relationship.
It is interesting, though, I guess because we do eat healthier, that when we do, quote, sin and eat something bad, especially at night, the next day you feel so hungover and sluggish and your mind doesn't function like it did when you ate something better the night before. I've noticed that several times. I thought, well, that's just a coincidence. But, if we try it again and then, try to go do things that we know we have to be on in a timely manner to get done, it's a lot harder to get that accomplished because your mind just doesn't want to keep up. One of the big things that we use to help our mind, a lot of people have heard of turmeric or turmeric. It's a huge cancer fighter.
Because it's anti-inflammatory all over the place.
And it's a huge thing for your mind. And we happen to have one that's a gram of turmeric. It's called curcumavale. It's CURCUM for curcumins, and then eVale. And you just take one of those a day, and it makes a huge difference in inflammatory markers all over the body, including your mind, so that it functions great. And then we always put a different product called B12 with the MTHF that Dr. Lewis always talks about, and he can explain why that's important.
Well, I talk about it because I have one of those genetic SNPs. It's the 677 single strand SNP, and you can find out if you have that MTHFR problem by doing the genetics out of 23andMe and then download it to, there's different websites. We chose LiveWello, and for a real low price, you can get some pretty cool and very thorough genetic testing, and that tells a lot about what you should be working on. It told me, for example, that I have a tendency toward dementia. And I thought, well, duh, look at my 90-something-year-old mother. You could figure that out. Although we put her dementia off for about 25 years because she was willing to take a lot of supplements in between what Janet would give her, what I would give her, what my brother, who's Dr. James Lewis, would give her. Her mind really, really came back in her 60s, and she was still present mentally into her 90s. So that's a good test. But the MTHF, I figured out I needed it before I even had the genetic testing. Now, I didn't do this, what Janet's talking about. I did one that's about 2.5 times stronger, which can be overdose.
Yes, we don't talk about that one on the air because if there's men out here listening to this show, they do the Tim Allen thing. It's like, well, if a little's great, more's got to be better. So I want the big one too.
Yeah, well,
so we don't do that because it can be too much.
Well, yeah, it kind of overloaded my detox pathways for about 5 days, and I love telling this story in this manner. It's like I felt terrible for 5 days, but I don't lose my faith when I feel bad. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. And on the 6th day, Jesus parted the clouds and angels started singing. So I take that one pill per day, and again, it's overdose for some people, but Janet can tell you the day I forgot it and didn't take it, but it's not really that I forgot because it is so incredible for heart health, but it makes my brain work better. I really, it's a huge difference in how well I think.
And it's also great for people that have a depressive type personality. Because that's usually a methylation problem like he's talking about. And I can tell you that Dr. Lewis's family has that tendency anyway. Not my husband, of course. He's upbeat, bright, and cheery because he always takes his stuff. But whenever...
We all have choices.
Right. And whenever any of the members of his family would take that pill, it was like they were bright and bubbly too.
For the first time in 50 years.
Right. So it's a genetic weakness is what it is, but and
23andMe did reveal
that's right. So there's different quantities of the 5-MTHF that we sell, different milligrams, and we've got like 4 of them, but the safest one is to start with a B12 5-MTHF because anybody can do that, and that gives them a better mind. It gives them lots of energy. It just help you focus and stay on task for the day. And then the other big thing is sleep. How many people are not getting enough sleep at night? We hear this so much.
Several times per day we hear it. And I would encourage people, and there's different reasons. We had a guy the other day says, oh, my God, I'm getting restful sleep for the first time ever. Thank you. And that's Joe from Ypsilanti, Michigan. While there's a young lady in Pittsburgh, Kansas that I can't get her to understand it's because your immune system's had its butt kicked, and you've got to spend the months to rebuild your GI tract / immune system, and then and only then will you begin to sleep. And she just, sometimes you get advice, but you don't listen to it. You have to act on good advice. And so I tell people, if you like us, great, stick with it. If you don't like us, go somewhere else till you find something that fits your personality, because there's not one correct answer. There's several. But sleep is a major, major issue, and it's getting worse.
Well, and so many people take medications to sleep. I like to get on Facebook and just read what people's comments are. But they're taking Tylenol. They're taking Benadryl. They're afraid if they don't take their Tylenol or Benadryl, they're not going to sleep that night. Is that normal? When you were born, were you presented with a bottle of Tylenol to your mother that said,
Yes.
"Hey, this poor child is not going to sleep. You're going to need Tylenol for the rest of your life to sleep"?
Well, they gave us a narcotic when we were kids. It was supposed to be for stomach problems, and I think
Paregoric, wasn't it? Paregoric. Yeah. I remember that too. Now it's whiskey, right? Now you rub it on their gums.
Hey, you never know.
But you want to do something natural, and we always tell people, if you're waking up in the night, and usually it's between 1 and 3 in the morning, believe it or not. It's a liver problem, and when you keep dumping on the medications to sleep, well, that your liver's trying to detoxify that, so you constantly have that cycle going that you never break because you take the medication before you go to bed to sleep. Your liver says, "I don't think so. We're going to have to detoxify this, so you're going to be woke up again." So you need to think about other things like cleaning up the liver, and that will help you actually sleeping and get your 8 hours of sleep a night, 7 to 8 hours. If you're getting less than that, you can't expect your body to function and do what it needs to do.
I'll tell you, I'm kind of switching gears, going down another road, but one of the best things you can do to get your mind back and decrease your stress is go do something kind for somebody else. And there's even research on that from Journal of Clinical Oncology. Acts of compassion reduce anxiety. It's best if you can do that anonymously, and we kind of get a kick out of doing that when we do. And you just go do something that's totally unexpected, and see how that makes you feel, and see if your mind doesn't feel less stressed just because of that. And then your memory can come back. And we live in a tense world. For you that are watching TV, I'll try not to get too much into that, but I try not to watch those kind of programs because they're negative. And it's better if you can watch something that's very, very positive, because there was Journal of Developmental Psychology said depressed mothers bring up depressed children, and there wasn't even a genetic component to that. So the best thing to do is put your foot in the sand, stop it, be compassionate, go be kind, go smile, go give somebody a hug. I told one of my patients yesterday, I've never met her except talking to her on the phone, I said, "I'd love to come to Kyle, Texas and just hug you till you got well." And she started crying. She says, "I hadn't been hugged in years." Well, people need to be touched, and they need to know that you care about them. So part of our practice here is to supplement with really good supplements and know what to supplement with by looking on the lab. But the other thing is we try to bring you up and encourage you, because the more you feel better and have a healthier body, a healthier mind, and less stress, the more you're going to give that to everybody else. So let's, go back to that old thing, random act of kindness. That could change the world very, very quickly. So let's start today and let's get that done.
Well, and you talk about people that we invest our time into, which we love doing. And Dr. Lewis gives his time away for free. I think the frustrating thing for us is to know how much we put into someone's health, and then to know they still don't do anything about it. If you knew what we did behind the scenes to get your lab values looked at and get all kind of information to you to better your lives, you would realize that many times we care more about you than you care about yourself.
But I hear that from medical doctors that say, well, they don't even fill the prescription half the time, much less take them correctly. I talked to several different preachers of large churches, and they say, well, it's really frustrating when you put all your time and energy and then they go do something wrong anyway. Folks, it's way past time for us to, get our head out of that dark hole and start loving people. But first of all, you got to love yourself first. So do something good for you, but do something good for other people. If somebody loves you enough to invest their time, energy, and effort in you, pay them back. And, start right there in the family. It does make a huge difference.
And one of the other things, we were talking about sleep, people not getting enough of it. There's many people that tell us they can't go to sleep. They're just wired and can't fall asleep. Well, that comes with cortisol, and your cortisol levels are very important to be checked, because that's adrenal function of whether they are high or low. And for those of you that don't know what we do very low-cost lab. We do it across the United States, so it isn't like you have to come see us in Texas to do it, although you can if you'd like. But usually there is a lab that's close to your home that we send you to, so that we're not guessing at why you don't feel good and why your mind is gone and, what's happened to your energy. We run quite a few panels of lab, and we do them at cost so that it takes the guesswork out of what you need. Like I was saying, Dr. Lewis goes over those lab values with you for no cost so that you know what products are the best for you and not what Aunt Mary down the road got that didn't work for you. So
we're trying to make a big splash here for more people.
So if that's something that you're hearing all this and you're going, well, I have that, maybe I have this, I don't really know what I have, then the lab is the way for you to figure out what you need. Go to our website at doctorsnutrition.org. It's drsnutrition.org. Fill out the health survey that is located up in the top right-hand corner of the website. And I'd also ask you to go ahead and make yourself an account on there, because many of the products that we talk about are not available just for the general public to purchase because they've not heard one of our shows and they're not informed about what some of these things can do. And our products are pharmaceutical grade, which means they're actually strong enough to make a difference on your lab values. They'll actually move the lab work.
Some of them we will not sell unless we have lab work, because there's some that's that powerful. You do have to be careful.
Correct.
That's why we tell you don't do the willy-nilly, and know for a fact you've got nutrient deficiencies. When they take brown rice and grind it and bleach it into white rice, you lose 80% of all of the trace minerals. So we're all nutrient deficient. So put nutrients in and find out how good your body can feel mentally, and then you'll remember it. Hopefully, this is about memory, but have the energy and then the feel good to go be a blessing to somebody else.
Yeah, but the lab panels are on the site. You can't purchase the panels because we have to evaluate that and decide which ones are best for you. But you can see what all we do run on there, and generally it's about 12 different panels of lab, where from your doctor you're getting 1 to 3. So we go into great detail about why you're not feeling good. Sometimes people are anemic and don't have a brain, and they don't know that they're anemic because they've only had the one panel run, the CBC, that showed that they looked fine with their hemoglobin, hematocrit, and all that kind of good stuff. But when we run their stored iron, which is the ferritin, we see many times they're anemic. And if you're anemic, your mind is gone. And it doesn't matter what you put in there. If you don't have your iron high enough, you're not going to remember anything. So, there's so many reasons why you might not be focused or able to do what you need to do. And I think it's pretty important that we all have a mind to know what we need to do, because, well, sometimes it's okay. You can just sit, if it's the weekend and you're clueless, that's all right. But if you have a job, you might want to know exactly what you're supposed to be doing so it don't hurt someone else. What else have you got for us about the mind, Doctor?
Well, I forgot. I think it's very important to learn how to be peaceful, and I think Janet would agree that one of the easiest ways to be peaceful mentally is to supplement, through your body. You can short circuit that nutrient depletion and inflammation. And Janet and I just did a podcast with a young man in Spain that has, I don't know, maybe 100,000 or several 100,000 followers here in America. And we talked about vitamin D. And although this is a super, super healthy guy, his vitamin D was very low, as is almost all of us. Even if you're taking vitamin D, the 94% of the time is what I found, the vitamin D you're taking is not working. It may be because it's not really a great product. It could be just because you have a gut malabsorption, which can lead to memory loss because your body's too busy fighting that. So vitamin D, it's very important to not take a bunch of it unless you see it on lab. That needs to be dosed very specifically, because this young man in Barcelona said, but when I take too much, I feel bad. And he says, nobody believes me. I said, I believe you, because I've seen vitamin D overdose. Don't dose yourself, please. But vitamin D is incredibly important to help your body fight all problems.
Could you briefly talk about fish oil as well? Because I think that's a huge one for mind health. We don't have much time left in the show, but if you could just touch on why you need fish oil and a good fish oil, about what it does for the mind.
Yeah, in the fish oils you have EPA and DHA, and your brain is about 40% DHA, and so if you're taking it, that's an anti-inflammatory omega-3, and it's very important in repairing the brain and basically putting the fire out. Janet makes sure I get the 5-MTHF and the B12, and she makes sure I get the fish oil. She dumps it in my drink. I do the liquid because I don't like swallowing any more pills than I have to. And I'm going to confess here, I didn't take hardly anything when we were on vacation because there was not that much stress except driving 1,000,000 miles. But
you like that?
I did lose some of my mental capacity or ability to think so quickly because I was not feeding it the fish oil. Folks, we have so many inflammatory omega-6s and omega-9s. You have to offset that with the anti-inflammatory omega-3s, and fish oil is incredibly important, and a lot of it out there really is not good stuff, and some of them that are only half strength cost twice as much as ours, which I find really strange, but I take it, and Janet dumps it in my drink. So, folks, there's a lot of things you can do. Just do it for the sake of yourself and then to bless your family.
So what's keeping you from having a life worth living? Go to our website, doctorsnutrition.org, and fill out the health survey and get started today while you still have your mind. Hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day, and we'll talk to you right here next time on the Doctor's Nutrition Show.